All right, well, welcome everybody tonight. We're very excited to have you all join us, and we're very excited for Coach Lisa Thomaidis to have been able to make some time for us here for our March Hoops Hangout. I will now turn it over to Coach Mark Hogan, who will introduce Lisa and get our session started.
Beautiful. Thank you, sir. Thanks, Reagan. We're very fortunate to have Lisa on here. She was just telling us earlier how busy she is right now. I mean, obviously, being an Olympic year and COVID and all the other curveballs that come with it, we may hear more about it from her. She did mention earlier that all these logos that are on the screen right now, the logos look great, but she would prefer to see your faces during this presentation. So if you don't mind turning on your cameras, that would be great. And you certainly don't have to, but it would certainly be nice if you did. Whether you're eating dinner or not doesn't matter. All right. So thanks so much. I think I first met Lisa, I may be off a little bit, but 20 some odd years ago, when she recruited one of our high school kids out of Calgary, Ashley Duchak, that went and played for Saskatchewan. And we've had a little bit of a connection ever since. But one of the things that we're most excited about with having Lisa here, not only has she won national championships a couple times at the University of Saskatchewan, but being our national women's head coach, I forget where we were ranked after or going into the Olympics in 2012. I think it was 20 something. And in the last two quadrennials, our national women's program has vaulted to number 4 in the world. And it's not by accident. Lisa's the primary architect behind the success of our women's program. There's other people that work with her as well, and she would be the first to tell you that. But becoming recognized as one of the top programs in the world, there's a lot of intention that goes behind it. And so a lot of the questions that some of you sent in, I think, are going to be related to that. If you have any questions as we go on this evening, put them in the chat room. Reagan will read them, and then he'll interrupt Lisa or certainly get involved with Lisa based on your questions that come in. But here's the first question that came in from Ben. He says, what is your opinion on how or what to coach offensively at the high school level? And he asked, basically, is the best way to teach the game having a set offense, some sort of a motion offense, or some sort of a dribble drive?
Okay, well, thanks so much for the question, Ben, and thanks so much, Mark and Reagan, for having me on today, or tonight, I guess. Always a pleasure meeting with coaches, and would really love for this to be a discussion too. So jump in at any point in time, ask me to, we can go on tangents for sure. We don't have to stick on the topic. And by no means am I an expert in a lot of these subject areas. So the first one being high school basketball. I would say whatever you can teach to multi-skill your athletes. I think, you probably have to coach or teach to the highest denominator as opposed to the lowest common denominator. So if you have players that you think can go on and play at the next level, I think what we find at the university level is just, in Saskatchewan in particular, like it is not uncommon to have 5-8 players come out of high school who've played in the post in rural Saskatchewan. And it's just like, it's a really tough go for them. They might be fantastic athletes, but when they've been playing and pigeonholed, as a small forward or forward in Saskatchewan high school basketball, that really is the end of their career. So I think what we've really been moving towards is positionless. I know it sounds cliche, but teaching all the fundamental skills that are necessary to continue to play at the next level. So, what is conducive to that style of play, I guess? Is it dribble drive? It could be. I think, is it like 4 out, 1 in and motion style? It could be. I think anything where you aren't pigeonholing your athletes into just like, hey, your tallest player is playing down the low block and playing with their back to the basket. Your shortest player is your point guard. I think the more that you can give your student athletes a number of experiences playing in different positions on different spots of the floor, in different environments, you're really going to set them up for success later on. So that would just kind of be my short answer, I guess. Certainly don't want to say one style or one type of offense is better than the other, because I think you can do so much with anything as long as you can adapt it to the players that you have and the skill set that you do have. I'm not sure if there's a question a little bit later on. The one thing I would say is just, I think at the younger levels, like zone defense is just such a killer, because the younger the age, you know, how many kids can shoot the 3-point shot at age 13? So when you're seeing zone D, even in like grade 9, 10, it seems to be highly effective, basically because you have so few athletes that have range on their shot. So it is going to be effective at that age. So I would say, you know, teaching them zone is a little bit of a disservice, you know, maybe as a switch up, but it's hard to see young kids playing primarily a zone or sitting in a zone. And again, your tallest kid just protecting the basket and standing there and not learning how to play positional defense. Again, I think it's all about setting them up for success later on if they do choose to pursue the sport at a higher level. So I'll leave it at that. And if Ben has any follow-up questions, or if anyone else has any ideas around that, I would also love to hear that. Like I said, I'm certainly not an expert in high school basketball. Okay, Ben. Great. Thank you for the question.
All right, great. Thanks, Ben. Our next question is regarding team culture.
Sorry.
It's all good. So when creating team culture, what roles do members of the program play in enforcing this culture? Example, communicating during practice to keep a high level of energy. Do you rely mostly on the assistant coaches to help keep the energy, or is it the players? If it is the players, what happens when they are not doing a good enough job? When do the coaches get involved?
Yeah, definitely lean on our players a lot and our captains to make sure that culture is being lived. They, for one, have to live our culture. They have to be involved in creating the culture, what's important to them, what do they expect from their teammates, what do they expect from, you know, this whole experience that we're going through. So I think one of the extreme examples, I'm sure people have heard, you know, about Gino Auriemma and how he essentially holds his point guard or his captain accountable for every mistake that might happen with any of the first year players. And if they mess up, he's going directly to the captain and saying, you know, what's going on here? Why don't they know this? Why are they making that mistake? This is on you. And so that's kind of an extreme example. I'm not sure I would, you know, expect our captains to make sure that our rookies are doing everything perfect on court. But I do expect them to hold our younger players accountable to what our team culture is and what we have discussed or what they've determined are going to be the culture and some of the non-negotiables. And so that's something that occurs early in the season for sure. For us, you know, again, with the continuity, I guess, in terms of our coaching staff, it's probably something that we don't visit enough of because it's almost like it just continues to get passed down. Like our fifth years pass it down to our new players and so on and so forth. So, you know, we would lean heavily on our captains to make sure that that's adhered to. One thing I do say, you know, I'm sure it's multiple times during the year is, you know, I'm not there to be their cheerleader. I don't think that's my role as the coach. Yes, our assistant coaches can provide some of that energy, but it's really on the athletes. They have to find it within themselves to bring that energy to practice if that's an important component of our culture. And again, it's tough. It's really tough, but I think it's quite a true test of their motivation, of their character, of them getting outside themselves to give to their teammates. So that is a big one. And I think that's one of the harder ones. Especially when you're not having a good day and you're feeling kind of sorry for yourself and you're not playing well. How much can you give back to your team by providing that energy or asking a teammate how they're doing? So yeah, that would, like I said, we would lean heavily on our athletes and on our captains to make sure that that's being adhered to. If we're not living it, again, a lot of that is a reminder. So you have to come to, you know, an agreement early on that this is what we want to live. And if you see it breaking down and not living up to the standard with which we spoke about, then I think it's a reminder. It's talking to your captains about it and about the whole team. And usually that's all it takes is just kind of revisiting some of those items that you see important and they'll pick it up for sure. But yeah, you can't let it slip. I think it becomes a very slippery slope if you don't stop things or if you don't address it. I think the athletes have to have a very clear understanding of what is expected and what meets the standard and what is below the standard. And, giving them very clear examples of when it's meeting the standard or exceeding the standard and applauding it. And then conversely, when it's not meeting the standard. So they have a very clear understanding of what it looks like when they're doing it and what it looks like when they're not, or what it sounds like or what it feels like. So, yeah, any follow-up to that?
I'll follow up. Do you find a difference between when you're applying that principle at the U Sports level and when you're applying it with the national team? Do you find that because the U Sports team is together more often, that it's easier for the players to lead? And does it take time, or is it very immediate with the national team players and how those roles get established?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think at the U Sport level, like you said, because you're around them all the time, and those athletes are around each other for multiple years, right? It's easier. I think they have a very clear understanding of what the expectation is. At the national team level, when you have, different players coming in at different times, perhaps some that maybe don't have as much experience, maybe haven't spent as much time together, I would say there's probably a few more instances or examples when, okay, is that part of our culture or isn't it? Like, is that the standard or is it not? And, sometimes it really tests the coaching staff, and we'll have to meet and decide, is this a non-negotiable, or are we going to let this one go? Not let it go, but it might be an example that we haven't even thought of. So those are good tests for us, because it really does test our culture and what we believe in and what we want to see from the athletes. Quite often, though, it'll be our vets. Like, we have amazing leaders on our team. Kim Gaucher and Miranda AM and Natalie Achamwa and Kia Nurse, like they do a great job of holding their teammates accountable. So I would say it's a little more difficult because of the moving pieces of that team. But when you have great leadership and leadership within, it most of the time takes care of itself.
Oh, for sure. That's awesome. And yeah, in watching Kia on the Raptors broadcast last night, there's definitely you can feel that leadership coming through, especially, again, being in front of the whole country.
Oh, it's unbelievable,
Yeah.
and you realize that she's 25 years old, and she comes by it so naturally and so well spoken, and I mean, her basketball IQ is off the chart. So yeah, she's certainly found a niche there that she does very well.
Yeah, no, it was very, very cool to see yesterday.
Awesome.
So next part still from Carrie's question here. When speaking with individual players about roles on the team, how often do you speak with players about that role? What if players feel they can offer a different role on the team, and how do they express that? Are players under the assumption that the role they have is for the entire season, or is there a chance that their role can evolve and change throughout?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the constant communication is super important. I'll come at it from a U Sport context, because again, you have them over a long period of time. And I think for me, when we chat with our athletes, we try to do it regularly. It's probably never enough. You can always communicate more. You can always, determine roles and be very clear with that. I don't think you can do it too much. But we would sit down and have, a very clear conversation at the beginning of the season, and then, probably a month or so in, and then again at Christmas, and then any other time throughout the year. I think the hard part for me is outlining a role in September, but knowing that so much can change between September and February, March, when playoffs roll around. So I hate kind of giving a hard line in terms of what their role is for the whole year, and more where we see them now. And I think the most important piece is, this is your role now, but these are the things, if you can improve upon, will help you improve that role. We always talk about, is that I always want to hear what they think and see what lens they're coming at it from, so that I can help them. Because I think the problem comes when you see them in one light and they see themselves, in a much different light. And when there's that big gap and there's disparity between those two visions or perceptions, that's when you get into some trouble. And that's when you're going to have discontent and, players who don't understand why they're not playing more, or what their role is and what they think it should be. So when that comes up, I think that takes a lot of education. And so we'll watch a lot of film together and just, again, outline those things. And it's the fine line comes between showing them, you know, areas where they're maybe not meeting the standard, but not killing their confidence. So understanding like, here's the gap, but not from a lens of, you know, you're terrible and you're always making this mistake. And that's the tough one. Really trying to avoid playing time when they do make that error and then they feel like, well, they're automatically going to come off if they make the error that you've been talking about all the time. So being conscious of that. But I think the closer that you can come to, you know, seeing things in a similar light, you might never ever see it the same. I think that really helps with the clarity and then helps with defining roles. And I'd say the other difficult thing for players to understand is, you know, if you have a gap, you can control that gap and you can close the gap and you can improve in this skill or in this area. But at the same time you're doing that, you have a teammate who's also doing that. And I think that's what sometimes they forget is, well, I'm improving, I'm better at this, or I'm more efficient from the three, or I'm doing what you've asked me to do. I've gotten better in that area. And that may be very true, but at the same time, there could be a teammate who's also doing that and also maybe bringing more to the table. So again, it's a lot of moving parts, but I think the more that you can communicate and create that clarity in common language and, you know, similar outlook on how you want to see the game being played, I think that really helps.
Well, that sounds good. Do you have maybe do you have a good example from either at the university or with the national team where someone has really evolved their role and really grown a lot in the time that you've had them, either within one season or over their career?
Yeah, I think, you know, I think there's a number of players that have done that. And, you know, there's quite a few that have come in and maybe not played very much in their first year at all, but have come in with that like mindset of, I just want to learn. I just want to get better. I'm going to work my tail off to get there. And they may not be the flashiest of players, but they just don't make errors, right? And that really goes a long way. And the effort piece too. We've had a lot of players where, you know, even not super skilled, but have a great basketball IQ, can start to anticipate what's going to happen and just do the grinder things. I'll say a name, but like a Maddie Humbert, who, you know, eventually was a team captain, but came in and really barely played. She won a national championship in her 5th year. She came in off the bench and played a significant role in our national championship and, you know, just didn't make errors. And she probably had some of the best hands. Like she was like a 5'9", 3'4", and, you know, like knew the game well, was pretty skilled, like made herself into a player. But if she got her hands on a ball, no one would ever take it from her. So she was a great rebounder despite lack of size. And again, just kind of embraced her role, you know, was an amazing teammate. When she got her opportunity, she didn't make errors. And she worked her way into being a significant member of our team and of that championship team. So it's awesome when you can see that and you can use those as examples. And to see them being rewarded is, I mean, I love that more than anything else, is just seeing players improve and having their hard work pay off, especially when they do what you're asking them to do. Like, just do this and just do this. You don't have to be great at 15 things, but if you can do this and this, you're going to get playing time. So that's the fun part for me is learning to identify what those couple of things are, you know, the biggest bang for your buck. I think a lot of players try to be good at a lot of different things and it doesn't really differentiate them from others. Or if you're just average at a lot of things compared to being great at a couple, I'd rather be great at a couple.
I agree with that completely. That stands out so much in the coaching again. So players try and do too much sometimes, and that example of just be really good at defending this and be a really good rebounder. And like you said, that role will emerge. And,
totally.
You know, people will find more minutes than I think they thought they were going to.
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, Mark, you ready for the next one?
Sure am. Next question is from Aaron, but even before that, Lisa, the one comment you made earlier where you said your players have to live the culture, I think that's pretty powerful. I like that phrase, and that has, yeah, that'll have so much impact, I think, not just for players, but for coaches, that we need to live the culture.
It's so easy to talk about it, and, probably heard a million people say it already, but it's not like finding words and then sticking them up on a board and then you never revisit them. It's not that. It's like, okay, if you come up with a slogan or words, whatever it is, like, what do those look like to you? What do they mean to you? What does it sound like to you? And then how are we living them in our environment? And again, like, I think just gaining that clarity around and understanding around what that looks like, and then you can hold them accountable to that. But yeah, it just can't be a token exercise, I guess, that you never revisit. And it's probably, it's one thing that I haven't done a great job over the years. I know with national team, when we really honed in on our style of play a couple of years ago, and we narrowed it down to, again, 3 words, but it was dynamic, relentless, and together. And again, okay, great words, good, but what does that mean? And what we did is we took it to apply to absolutely everything we do. So it applies to our team meetings. It applies to how we just like operate. It applies to our scouts. It applies to our player identities. We will debrief it in practice. And, we would constantly, after practice, I would constantly be told from our mental skills coach, you did not use the word dynamic enough today. You didn't say relentless. Like, you have to talk to them about what does relentless look like. And I'm always one, like, I don't want to repeat myself. Like, I don't want to sound, monotonous and just like saying the same thing. But I realized that I'm not doing them any favors just by trying to sound smart. Like, you have to just drill it home, like nonstop. I'm like, oh, they're going to think it's so hokey. They're going to be like, oh, like, what are you doing, LT? Like, you just keep talking about the same words. But at the end of the day, it sticks with them and it means something to them. And it's something that they can really grasp onto and hold onto. And it's kind of like an anchor, I guess, when things might be a little bit rough. Maybe not going as well, or maybe they are going well. It's like, this is us, this is our identity, and we know what it is and we know what it looks like. So yeah, that's definitely a big lesson that I've learned for sure.
Yeah, that's great. Here's Aaron's first question. What are some things you've been doing with your players, I'm assuming this past winter, when you can't play any games?
Yeah.
And for some of us, we're just getting in the gym now in the last few weeks. Yeah.
That's been a tough one. I really grappled with that because all I kept hearing from our university athletes was how much more work their academics were this year. Like, it's so much work. And so I didn't want to fatigue them with more meetings or more like basketball homework. So we went at it from a little bit of a different perspective. So in November, what we did is we had a speaker series. And so every Sunday evening, we'd have a different alumni come on. And well, actually, we had a couple at a time. And they would really speak to their experience, like what things were like back in the day when they played, what their career path was, what they're doing now. And then just like, what is some advice that you'd offer to these players? And for me, and I think for the athletes, they really appreciated it because it wasn't like, it's basketball, yes, but it's not homework like watching film. It's not, kind of pretending to still be getting better, but it's life skills because it's connection. It's learning that you have these people in your corner if you need them. It's also learning, like, if you don't have a career right, like what I've learned is our players are so focused on marks and getting awesome marks, and they're very anxious and stressed about it. And so, I feel like a lot of them, if they don't know what they're going to do for a career after their first year, they're just like stressed to the max. And so a lot of our alumni came on and we're talking about like, oh my gosh, I didn't know what I was going to do after my 5th year, and just, ended up being these super successful people, but didn't really have this grand plan. And more than anything, I think it was just like a sense of calm and a sense of relief. Like, I can still be successful. Things are going to fall into place. And, you know, kind of understanding you're high performing, highly motivated people. You have the ingredients to be successful. You're going to be, and just like kind of chill a little bit. So I just went at it from a whole different perspective. I think a lot of coaches were like running so many meetings and so many this, that, and the other. And I don't know, we just kind of did things differently. So it's either going to be like the worst decision I ever made or a pretty good one. Who knows?
Yeah. No, that's great. And your athletes probably appreciated it as well. Just, yeah, hearing from different people. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think they really liked it and just, again, built a little bit more of that connection, because a lot of times our alumni come back and watch our teams play or are part of events, but there isn't that like other connection. Like, there aren't our players going out and actually speaking and hearing from them. Like, they're always coming back and watching the team. But so yeah, it worked well both ways for sure.
Yeah, good. The second part of Aaron's question, what one piece of advice would you give to a young team of 6th graders playing together for the first time? This is your perfect age group, I know. So if you want me to tell Aaron, hey, that's a bad question, I can tell her that.
I'm useless with grade. What do grade 6s do? Like,
I know. Okay, good. That's great. Yeah, I'll handle that one. I'll handle that.
No, you tell me.
Yeah. I'll get her to call you.
Is Erin on?
I don't think so.
All right, she's getting it.
Oh, no,
she's getting a call from you after this.
And then don't show up.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll pass that along for sure.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, no, I don't see her on.
I'll pass that along.
Okay,
No
right.
show, no answer.
Exactly.
Well, Mark, since the next ones are yours, Mark, why don't you get to ask your own questions?
There you go. Okay, so something I mentioned earlier in the introduction, again, being our senior women's national team and the architect of our success, certainly one of the main architects of our success. When I say our, I'm talking Canadian women's national team. I've got nothing to do with it.
Thanks, it's our, for sure. Everyone contributes to it. Like, everyone's contributing to like producing better athletes. And, you know, I'm just the beneficiary of it at the end.
Yeah, no, that's great. And so my question was, in the last 2 quadrennials, what 2 or 3 things would you suggest have been most critical to the rise in performance?
Yeah, so that's a great one, because at the end of each quad, we really like do a gap analysis. Like, where are we falling short compared to other tier 1 teams? So, I mean, now we're ranked 4th in the world. So now we measure ourselves against the top 3. Like, when we say tier 1 teams, that's like the USA, Australia, Spain, and we'll throw France in there too. The 5 of us are kind of like the top 5. So maybe I'll relate it more to like current trends and things that we've noticed, and even just like going into Tokyo, some of the things that we've focused on. So one interesting stat, like, we're really focused on open shots. And we went back and looked at our February and our November window, mostly February, and just compared like how many open shots are we getting compared to other best teams in the world. And I think our number was something like 32% of our shots are open, compared to, I think I actually have the numbers here somewhere, compared to, I think, 45% from other teams. Hold on, I can probably give you the exact number here. Yeah, okay, got it. We 32% of our shots are open, and the best teams get 45% of their shots are wide open. So we take way too many contested shots. And what we narrowed that down to, again, with the relative significance of the 3-point shot. So tier 1 teams average 9 open threes per game, like wide open, not a late contest. It's like tons of time, open look, feet set. They get 9 a game, and we get 5. So again, at the February qualifier, when we looked at our analytics and where we ranked, so out of all the teams that played, we had the #1 defense in the world, and we had the #4 offense in the world, which I was like, oh my gosh, really? We were 4th in the world offensively? That's always been our biggest gap, like scoring points, like, Mark, back in 2012 and leading up to that, a typical Canadian game would be like 52 to 56. You know, we probably have 52. We're not scoring a lot. So we've always been a world-class defensive team. That's the only way we've been able to stay, you know, competitive. And then that was really what we've been hanging our hat on. And now we've gradually just been increasing at the offensive end. So when you really boil it down, like we looked at total number of shots per game, I think we get like 61.8 shots per game. And that is like bang on with the best teams in the world as well. So we're like, okay, great. We're getting the same number of shots. It's just the quality of our shot. And so we're really focused on getting the open ones. And so we boil that down. Okay, how are we going to get more open shots? So we're going to implement some triggers. Like our transition offense is bad. Like it's non-existent. We just don't score in transition. And those, as you know, like we want to be attacking teams with disorganized defense, with obviously in a numbers situation, but before they get a chance to set up. We look at February, we'll have an advantage and we actually end up stopping ourselves. We'll guard ourselves because we slow the ball and don't keep it moving. So that's a big one. Our pass combos. So if we penetrate and then kick it out, we rarely make the next pass to create the wide open shot. So we're really focused on that. And then the last part about that, well, there's probably two more things. One is around our spacing. So we want to just switch up our spacing a bit more, just getting deeper in the corners. We want to utilize some of our bigs to be in more of a dunker spot as opposed to like on the block. We seem to just naturally gravitate towards the block instead of down that baseline. So that's another thing. And then lastly, it kind of goes along with our pass combos are the deep paint decision making. So we do a great job like attacking the rim and getting into the paint. Where we are lacking right now is just our decision when we get there. So quite often we're putting up a shot against, you know, two people that have come over to stop us, or, you know, we can't find the open person, or we've got people creeping in on the perimeter. So we don't have that like one person penetrating and then four people getting ready to move the ball. And again, like get the D to collapse and then kick it back out. So honestly, like, it's not rocket science. Like to me, I'm like, those are easy things to fix. Like when you watch us and as a team, we watch ourselves, you know, you can see like we're doing some great things, but we're just not, it's like that one thing that's lacking in each possession that would result in an open shot. But right now we're taking tough shots. And so we're making it a lot harder on us. So we're really trying to simplify. We're trying to keep what we do simple, but now just like making the execution perfection. So instead of like, again, part of our offensive philosophy is simplicity. It's simplicity, randomness, and pace, because we're going to have limited time together. Like we're not even going to have our WNBA players with us until like 5 days before the opening ceremony in Tokyo. So we can't run these intricate offenses that are going to create an open shot, but we have the luxury of some pretty amazing athletes that can create these advantages that should be able to create an open shot if we do some of these other things a little bit better than we have in the past. So sorry, that's a bit of a long run on answer, but just a little bit of an insight into like things that you can watch for when we're in Tokyo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I think that's a great answer, especially the how many contested shots that you take. And so trying to take more open shots, I think if every one of us as coaches looked at that, we'd probably see that we take a ton of contested shots. So trying to find that open shot makes a difference. How many free throws do you try to get a game? Attempts?
We don't have a target number right now, but it might be something that we implement. We haven't determined. I know I had the former Raptors assistant that went to Minnesota, Chris Finch. He's been kind enough. I've been able to pick his brain a little bit, but they have something. They want 25 free throws, 25 assists, and what was the other one? They want 25% of their missed shots to be offensively rebounded. They want to rebound 25% of their missed shots. So that's their 25-25-25 rule. I mean, a couple other things that we're looking at is, you know, I was I was asking him around, you know, are there a number of open threes that they're trying to target? Like, this is how many we want. And it was interesting answer. And he said, no, we're not trying to get a certain number, but what we track and what we talk about is limiting those non-paint twos. So I think his number was 10 to 12 per game. So that's what they track. And so they look at it from the reverse, like they don't want those types of things. As long as they're taking open shots and getting open shots, they're happy about that. But he's not going to tell them we need more of this, but he's going to make sure they know if they've been taking too many of the non-paint twos. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. Something I found interesting years ago, I heard from, I think it was Coach K, Mike, one of your buddies. He had said that we want to make more free throws than our opponents attempt.
Yeah.
It's like, as soon as you do that, you've just taken care of the free throw line. It's over.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
We'll do stuff like that with our university team for sure. We've got a number, I think we have like a checklist of 10 or 11 things, like 5 things on the offensive end, 5 on the defensive end, and we'll debrief them and check them off. And it's fun, like at that level, to go through stuff and be like, hey, you know, did we do this? Did we do this? And it's funny, like sometimes you get like 4 out of 11 and you still win the game, or but like it's, again, areas that I think it's really good feedback for them to have, and for them to gain a bit of an understanding around what things are important and what are ingredients that go into success. And if you can do those things, you know, the payoff is going to be great. And it just, again, increases buy-in. Again, like whatever it is that's important to you, make sure you talk about it, you track it, and then you celebrate it when you do it. And again, big lesson that I've learned over the last few years is, I think, you know, I always wanted to be great at everything and like emphasize everything. Well, when you emphasize everything, you emphasize nothing. Yeah. So like honing in on a few of those things and making sure, again, like those 3 words, you're talking about them and using that language all the time, and rewarding it when you see it. I was a little bit too much of the correct when it's not right, instead of celebrate when you do see it done well. So
yeah. And then the last part of my questioning, and then it'll be Reagan again. Most of us on this call here are not coaching with a national team program, so most of us are in the development game.
Yeah.
What suggestions or recommendations would you have based on the trends that you were talking about that some of us should be emphasizing, especially for these kids that are going on to be post-secondary players?
Again, like just your big kids, can they handle the ball? Can they shoot with range?
Multi-skilled.
What was that?
Multi-skilled.
Completely.
Yeah.
I think there was one question in there, like if you were to choose between ball handling and shooting, it's like, oh man, that's an impossible choice. But yeah, I think just some key things that we always work on with players coming in, shot consistency, like footwork. Is it the same every time? Like, do you know what you're trying to get with your shot preparation? Speed at which you have to get it off. Everything just around pace and the intensity that you have to play the game with. Passing with non-dominant hand. That's a huge one. Like, our assistant coach will work with our first years nonstop, like just passing with their non-dominant hand against the wall even, you know, like don't even come out here until you can start doing that with your non-dominant. That's passing on target. Like last year, I thought we were the worst passing team in the country because nothing was completed without being a deflection or someone having to do this or get down on their, you know, below their knees to catch a pass. So then we decided just to track on target passing. And it was amazing. Like, we had one player who could pass on target. The rest of them are a disaster. So just, I mean, yeah, I'm being facetious, but it's kind of funny. But at the same time, like when you're talking about roles and where people fit in, and all of a sudden you track this part of the game that you deem pretty important, and they're like way down the list, or their completion rate is, you know, 12%. Then again, they start to figure out like where they fit and where you see them. And these are the important components. You know, a lot of people will just kind of use scoring or shooting as their metric, I guess. Like, well, I shoot the ball better than this person, I should be playing. Well, yeah, maybe, but you can't pass, you can't defend, you don't rebound, you know, so So sorry, yeah, off topic there. But those, the pace, the intensity. The other big one I would say that separates like the high school player from the university player would be, what are you doing when the ball leaves the shooter's hands? Like so many people will just stand in the same spot and watch that. Like even at the next level, it's remarkable, the habits that haven't been built, and to try to make those habitual and part of their just what you do, it's really difficult. There's a lot of players that are used to just spectating and not doing, whether it's like, okay, I've got a job to do, whether I'm offensive rebounding or I'm a safety, or, defensively, what am I doing? There's a lot of people that spectate during that little moment in time. So like the physical intensity, but also the mental intensity that it takes, where you can't really have mental breaks, mental holidays. So those would be some of maybe like the non-physical things, I guess. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
All right, next one's from Mike. Mike, I'm going to take some liberties with your questions to help Lisa out, since the youth development questions are.
Oh boy, yeah.
We'll modify it to fit the context a little better. That's all right, Mike.
To fit my lack of knowledge in that area.
So when looking at two-player actions, what do you find the most effective? Whether it's dribble handoff, dribble pitch, pick and roll, pick and pop. Which ones do you like? What do you recommend? Are there any tips or tricks that you might have that could help coaches teach even younger players, and all the way up through, again, the context you're coaching at with university and national team?
We're really into gets, like pass it, run and get it, splits action, back cut, get it, rescreen. Not so much into dribble handoffs. We used to do a lot of dribble handoffs, and now we basically have taken them out completely, just because the big who's handling on the handoff, like typically their check just gets way off and you end up having two people defending the ball handler on the handoff. So we don't do as much about that, but the gets are a little more dynamic, because at least you still have your dribble, right? Like you can fake the handoff, you can keep it, you can face up, you can, curl the cut, you can back cut the cut, you can receive it, you can rescreen it. So there's just, to me, there's more dangerous options with a get, or chase action, whatever you want to call it. Like I said, the dribble handoff we've kind of eliminated, unless it's just like you need to, because you've got a big who just needs to get the ball to a guard, then you can do that. The ball screen is just, or the pick and roll, pick and pop. I mean, it's just such a big part of the game right now, internationally and pretty much at every level, that unless you do it, you're not going to know how to defend it. So we do a lot of it. And we do it with all of our perimeter players. But when it comes to games, we probably have two players that can use, a ball screen effectively. But I still think it's super valuable to have everyone learn how to use it. One of the trends now is like a guard-to-guard ball screen in the NBA, just to create the switch and then play out of that action. So even that, I think even at the university level, if we did a guard-to-guard ball screen, I don't think the guard would really know what to do, because it's like, oh my gosh, I'm never in this position of defending the screener in a pick and roll. Like I'm usually coming off the ball handler and trying to chase them over. So anything where you can create just like different scenarios where players aren't accustomed to defending, it's going to be effective. But like I said, it's such a big part of the game that if you don't work on it, I think your players are going to be behind. And even if you don't have it in your offensive actions, it's super important to know how to defend, because of what you will face at some stage.
Was there a player or a team that you would recommend watching to see the get action run really, really well? I'm a big fan of it as well, so I have my suggestions, but there's someone or a team, whether it's women's teams, men's teams, whoever, that you find runs it really effectively, that coaches could look at to see all the different possibilities and actions out of it.
Like Alex Sarama does like a great job in all of his like social media and tweets and things like that. Like I think he's broken it down, or Chris Oliver probably as well. And you can just see it again, at very young ages and developmental ages, to give all of the reads and the cues, and they do a really good job of it. I mean, at the highest level, watch the Nuggets, watch Jokic and Murray play a two-man game. It's pretty impressive. You know, but again, you're talking about Jamal Murray, who's extremely skilled and, you know, can get to the rim, can shoot the three like nobody's business. He's just so creative. But Jokic, I just think he's so fun to watch because you think of big guys, big women, and, you know, their skill set, and he just kind of blows it out of the water. And he's, you know, again, if you watch the Raptors game last night, and Kia's saying he's not the quickest. He is somewhat slow, but he just gets it done because he's skilled and he has body control and he's got beautiful touch. So yeah, I think those guys are probably like the gold standard right now.
Yeah, that the Nuggets was going to be my suggestion too. So yeah, no, then it's, I think, obviously having a Canadian involved, and then again, Jokic, the poster child of you don't have to be that athletic to be good at basketball.
Totally. I think like obviously I'm going to be biased, but like our Husky team, I think Summer Maskowicz is probably like pretty adept at doing it because again, she has a lot of those skills. She's mobile, she can shoot it. She's not afraid to attack the basket, and then her guard counterpart, whether it be Libby or Sabine, were pretty good at reading off her. And just it's tough action to defend, you know, if you have the pieces in place. And again, like two-player actions are pretty good because you can put your two best players in it, and you know, you can have limited skill set with the other three, but just put them in places where they can be successful, and they don't have to, you know, do a lot of the skill work. They can just be, you know, again, role players.
Yes, well, I'm sure Coach Walknuck would take credit for that Summer Maskowicz development on the Alberta provincial teams.
Thank you, Dave.
Probably jump in there.
I'll take no credit for anything. Trust me.
No credit for anything. No, for sure. Okay, and then one more part for Mike Shaw's question. What areas or parts of the gold medal model would you recommend to focus on for youth coaches? Again, another great youth coach question.
All of it. I mean, yeah, I think just, again, lots of different experiences for all your players, like put them in the post, put them in the short corner, put them in, you know, at the top, put them on the wing, gaining an understanding of the two-player actions, the gets, the ball screens. I think the more you understand concepts and not plays, the better. Like the concepts rule, and no matter what you do, if you understand those basic concepts, you're going to understand basketball, and you're going to be able to execute whatever system you're faced with. So just, again, the concept of spacing, the concept of lifting off ball screen, the concept of reading that post defender if you're the handler in the ball screen action. Just I think all those little pieces, and they become like little puzzle pieces that as they get older, they understand how those pieces fit together and create the greater athlete. And, you know, that's kind of when the game slows down. But I think concepts would be my key takeaway.
Awesome. Fantastic. All right, Mark, you're up.
So this question is from Doug, and now we're going back to international play. So you're more comfortable. And you've already talked a lot about trends and pace and different things. So let's see if something else comes to mind when you get this question. What are the major influences that are directing style of play at the international level?
I think ultimately, no, I shouldn't say that. I think a lot of it is analytics. So, I mean, the three-point shot has just, it's blown up how basketball has been played in the past to how it is now. You're going to see like such distinct styles of play, right? Like it's almost like there's some amazing European coaches, and if you watch European basketball, it's so team oriented for the most part. Like there's, I would say, more passing, more off-ball screening, more like execution deeper into a play. And then you've got NBA, who is two-player action and really putting your stars with the ball and them creating the advantage and then making those decisions. So I think the analytics of the three-point shot has then changed the way we space the floor, which has then changed the way. Positionally, the skill set that you need to have to play in those spaces. And then the influence, obviously, of the NBA, and then the influence of some strong European teams. You know, the other big trend was like Spain pick and roll for the longest time too. So that kind of came in again with spacing, and you know, obviously the Spanish coaches love it, and that's where the name came from. But I think they come from, there's certainly trends that come from different areas for sure, and not all from the same place. But again, whatever works, and you have to understand your skill set and your strengths, and then find what's going to work with them ultimately. But you know, the spacing piece, like there are very few NBA teams that now play anything other than like spread offense and 5 out, or you know, maybe it's 4 out 1 in with like the dunker spot filled. But you look back not too long ago, and you know, you'd have your 2 posts or 1 post and a lot of high-low game, and now that's just like out the window. So
yeah, here's a question on a scale. Let's go 1 to 10. Where does the importance of analytics fall for you?
The like, I like the more basic ones, to be honest. The super deep ones, I think when you're playing in the NBA and you're playing 80 games and you need to know these things about other teams. And again, what Chris shared with me is at that level, it's all about combinations and lineups of your team and making sure you have the right combinations out there. And I would say, like, at our level, like internationally, it's not so much about that. Like it is, but it's not to the degree that it is in the NBA. I would also say like the analytics that we know are mostly based on the NBA game as opposed to like women's international. So in the NBA game, like the 2-for-1 is huge in their game. But on the women's side, it's not. It's somewhat important, but not to the degree that it is in the NBA, simply because of their ability to shot make and to take tough shots and still make them. But on the women's side, you're just not going to get the efficiency that makes sense to go 2-for-1 at all costs. Same thing with, I mean, how many NBA teams do you see go to the offensive boards?
Nobody.
Nobody.
It's not a thing anymore.
Yeah, like the transition game is so lethal that they have to just shoot and get back. But for us, like it's still really important that we get on the O glass. Like we have to manufacture some easy points, and the O rebounding is going to be a huge one for us because of the athletes that we have. And that's going to also bleed into the defensive transition philosophy that we have. So we aren't running safeties back. We aren't shooting and getting back. We're saying we're going to take the chance and basically send 5. Like we want to move people forward on the shot, like on the 3-point shot. We don't want people running back. And it's really funny because it's almost like counterintuitive. Like when we would look at our defensive transition from other major games, we would have safeties, you know, we were all set up with our defensive transition philosophy, and yet we would still get torched in transition. And it was because of this massive gap. You know, we'd have our 3 going to the O boards. We'd have our safeties that are basically on the other side of half, but teams would hit that outlet or hit that next person right around, you know, just before half court and get going with speed. And, you know, tic-tac-toe, Europeans can just pick us apart. So, you know, you'd think almost, well, if you're getting beaten defensive transition, why don't you just have more people back? Well, and again, that just didn't prove that it would pay off for us. And so we need like the pressure on the ball. We need the matchups to avoid, you know, the miscommunication when you're running back. And so that's the direction that we're going. And again, it's something we tried to change about a year and a half ago. And so we've only worked on it like in 1 competition. So again, it's either going to be like, oh, this is an amazing decision, or it was like, this was really dumb. But again, we're looking for those little edges. Again, the 1%ers to get us from top 4 to on the podium. And so we can't keep just doing the same thing. So it's kind of some courageous decisions that we've had to make on our part to push the envelope a little bit.
Have you ever found like in game having to adjust based on some kind of analytic return that you've been seeing in the stats or something? Has analytics ever driven in-game decision making for you?
I would say not analytics. We're lucky, like internationally, we have access to game film on the bench, which is really cool. So an example from February was we played Japan, who's again, like probably one of the best teams in the world with respect to offensive transition. And in the first half, we got beat a few times over the top, them passing ahead and getting some easy scores. And one of the athletes came and said, like, we can't do this, coach. We gotta like change this up. We need to have some safeties. And thankfully we were able to watch, and we looked at those couple instances where we did get beat, and discovered that it wasn't that we needed safeties. It was just that we needed to do what we were supposed to do, just do it better, like actually execute it instead of what we were doing, which was not executing at all. So it's almost like the converse is, you know, having that video footage and evidence to be able to show them really helped us, and we were able to clean it up in the second half. But it was funny because they thought it was the system that let them down in the first half, and in fact it was just the execution. So I'd say the video has been like a huge tool for things like that, as opposed to the analytics.
Yeah, it's definitely a luxury that not all of us have.
Oh.
But yeah, I can imagine and think of many instances where I would like to have seen replays.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
And as coaches, like we never see it accurately, right? Like we'll swear
yeah.
that this is what happened, then you go home and watch film, and you're like, oh my goodness,
Not even close.
So
yes, but some of that convenient memory loss at times is great.
oh yeah.
Yeah. For sure. No, that's fantastic. I really like that answer. That's great, because I like analytics, but again, like I said, there's a limit. Like again, those big picture things are great, but some of that super detailed stuff just doesn't.
Yeah.
And it's hard to apply, especially if you're coaching youth basketball or even universities where we don't get access to all of it. Trying to apply some of that stuff just makes no sense.
Agreed.
For us. So no, that's fantastic, and it's good to know that it still gets applied as you move up the ladder. So
Yeah, no, that's cool.
all right. Next one. All right, is a university level question. How difficult has it been to recruit during COVID, and have you had to do it differently than in other years?
It's been very difficult to recruit in COVID. Gosh, I feel for the grade 12s right now who like didn't have film from their grade 11 year, don't have a grade 12 year, and now they're like sending stuff out to university teams who don't lose any athletes, like don't graduate any because they didn't use eligibility. So rosters are already somewhat full. And then coaches have to try to make a decision. Like you can't even bring people on campus. You can't bring them to like, so I'd say for us, it's a huge disadvantage because of so much of our recruiting is out of town and out of province even. So to not have visits, to not have any in-person meetings, it's been hard. So yeah, a little bit more over like video chat, obviously, or Zoom or whatever it is, watching highlight films. But again, it seems like it's a little bit of a gamble. You know, you think they're going to fit in, you think they're good, but you know, and sometimes you'll see film and you watch it they look amazing the first couple times you watch it, and then you go back and you're like, whoa, like were they playing against like 10-year-olds? Like they say they're 6 feet, but really they're probably 5'9". So anyway, it's just hard.
And the shooting percentages in highlight films are I'm 100%. I haven't seen a miss yet. Yeah. So
I totally get taken too. I'm like, oh, this kid can shoot. It's amazing.
Then you go look up the stats and it's like, oh, they're 32%. Right.
Yeah. It definitely helps if you know some high school coaches in different areas, and then you hit them up for like the truth.
Yeah. So you get the coach that really likes them, that's trying to get them recruited, the very filtered, polished version of who they are, and then you need some dissenting opinions from time to time.
Yeah, you get the best kid in the city comment a lot.
Yeah. Well, they're the best kid. I'm glad to hear that's the same everywhere. Yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah, it's hard.
All right, another kind of a combined question between national team and university. What is the pregame routine prior to coaching a game, either at the university or with the national team, and is there a difference?
I can't say there's anything too exciting about my pregame routine, that's for sure. Like after our shoot, I just kind of try to get outside for a walk for sure, clear my head. That's usually where I do my best thinking. And then, yeah, get to the gym and get there nice and early. I'm usually trying to watch like another, at the university level, usually trying to watch the end of another game, because with time change, you're usually watching some of the Ontario games. And again, just to get your mind off stuff. It's tough watching warm up. I don't love that. I always think our team is terrible. Like the other team will be in front and they're like making every shot, of course. And then I'll look down and we're bouncing the ball off our toe and, you know, just look terrible and pissed off because our dynamic warm up is not good, or, you know, it's just, so I need to not watch it as best as I can. Try and chat with my assistant. Yeah.
No superstitions, no nothing.
No, I'm boring.
Lucky
Oh my
socks,
goodness,
nothing.
I'm so boring.
Maybe that's the key to the success, is not overdoing it. No, for sure. So, in question just for me, in winning the national championship, what were the real key things that you found put your team in a position to be able to do that? What were the real key factors in the success in being able to climb that mountain and get to the top of the U Sports?
Honestly, I think it was playing poorly at nationals the year before. I think we left with such a sour taste in our mouth, and people were so upset at, you know, I think we left a year ago thinking we were good enough to win it all. We had the talent going into the tournament. I don't think we believed that. I think we thought, you know, we'd be in the mix, but oh man, look how good Laval is. Look how good these other teams are. But then we played like kind of subpar and we're right in the mix. And we just thought, wow, like that is not going to happen again. And it, you know, like I really didn't need to say a word. It was our leaders that, again, just I think led the motivation through the entire year. And we just never talk about winning. Like we just always talk about being better, you know, improvement, how we can be better at this, better at that. And then things just seem to take care of themselves when we focus on that process and just focus on being better individually, being a better team. But I'd say that was the big one. I mean, certainly we had lots of talent. We had players that had been to nationals, you know, a number of times before. And I think that experience really pays off for sure. I think, you know, we played a team in the final where it was their first time getting to a national final, and they were super impressive in their journey to the final. But I'd say in the final, they probably showed a little bit of their inexperience. And I think our team probably showed just, we've been here before and we know it's not going to be easy, but we know how to maintain focus and not get wrapped up in errors that are going to occur in the game and just like stay the course. I think they just had so much belief. They knew what needed to be done. They knew they'd experienced like what it takes to win it all. And I think just did a great job taking care of business, really. Our leaders were steadfast in their approach and, you know, really unflappable. You know, like our point guard, just nothing really upset her. She was such a great leader.
Oh, fantastic. So that is the end of all the pre-prepared questions.
No, there was one more. There's one more that.
One more. That's right. There is one more. Mark, all right. You take it from here, Mark.
Not that's the right. Anonymous one. There's still another one from Elise.
Was there another one? Did I miss one?
Another one from Elise. Obviously, the 2020 Olympics did not happen. So hopefully the 2020 Olympics happens this summer the way we all want it to. So the question from Elise is, how has your prep for the Olympics this year changed in the last year, or has it?
Enormous change. Yeah, so last year, so we qualified in February. We would have then gotten together again in May and played exhibition games and gone and trained in Japan and then went into the village. So it would have been like, you know, such a great maintaining that momentum. We played really well. We knew we had some tweaks, but we also had some injuries. And, you know, if we had to play last summer, I'm not sure we would have been great. Like we would have been injured. We would have been less than 100%. So then everything got put on hold, postponed, and our only preparation has been through virtual meetings. We've had a virtual training camp in February. We tried to get together in February face-to-face, but due to the restrictions, we weren't able to get our athletes because they're all over in Europe for the most part. A few obviously in the NC2A, and then we have a couple athletes that had surgeries. So we're still pretty banged up. Like I said, we we've had regular meetings. So we kind of meet, every 3 to 4 weeks. The virtual training camp was, I think, really well received. We were able to touch on a number of topics that, had we been in person, we probably wouldn't have prioritized as much as we did in this space. So a lot of, kind of playing out different scenarios. During the training camp, the draw came out, so we were able to see who we were going to play and really start to put our minds and our hearts into, okay, this is happening. And, these are the teams we're going to be playing. These are the styles of play we have to start preparing for. And there was just a little bit of excitement. I think you're in such a vacuum and you're put on hold for so many months. And sometimes it probably didn't even feel real, like we were going to be going to the Olympics. And so to actually be in a space where we could build some excitement and start talking about what it's going to be like, I think was really healthy. We did watch some film. Like I said, we're trying to do some new things. And so the only way that we can implement and install them is going to be over Zoom and over film. And so it's a gamble, but we also know we can't just stick with what we currently do. I think, that would be a big mistake. Teams are going to be evolving and changing what they do. And so for us, we have to stay ahead of the curve and can't let teams get a feel for what we're going to do. Again, we want to be random. We want to be simple. We don't have the time to be complex in what we do, but what we do, we want to do it really, really well. So that's been our prep. Like I said, we're not going to have all of our players until like 5 days before the opening ceremony. So it's going to be a real challenge to gain some of that chemistry that our team is known for. I think that's some of our X factor, but we're going to rely heavily on the fact that a number of our athletes have played together for a number of years. So we kind of have that, and now it's just a matter of getting back to it. And I don't think it'll take a ton of time to get back to that. Let's hope.
Yeah, they're probably going to be excited to get together finally.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, some of them haven't been home, like weren't home over Christmas. So it's been a long time. And, now we're even faced with the possibility of when we get together in May, not disbanding at all until after the Olympics. So then you've got the reverse problem of, whoa, we're together for like 3 months in like a bubble. Yeah. So it'd be different if you're together, but then you have off days and you can do whatever, but you can't breach that bubble and risk that anything comes into, that space. So it'll be a challenge. Yeah,
good. It will be. One more last anonymous question, and I found it hilarious. It's from either a current or a former player, and you'll have to figure it out yourself. And you mentioned earlier tonight, you mentioned the word non-negotiables. So I think every one of us as coaches, we have things that we go, yeah, okay, I see what you're doing, so I accept it. And then there's other things like, nope, that's not happening on this team. So here's the question from this particular former or current player, which I think is awesome. It says, what are your thoughts when players roll their shorts? Do you let players do that or not?
I love that they submitted this. That's so funny. No, we do not let players roll their shorts. I think it looks absolutely ridiculous. Every time I see them on TV rolling their shorts, I try to point out to our players, look at how bad they look. Yeah, I don't know. That's just a thing for me. I don't like that. Like one of our former players was only 5'5" and whatever. She was like a rookie, so she had bigger shorts. And she was like, Coach, can I please like roll my shorts because they're going past my knee. So when I run, it kind of like catches on my knees. I'm like, just pull them up higher. Like, no, you're not rolling them. I hate that. And I hate like the roll into the bra strap as well.
Oh, yeah.
And it's getting way worse, right? Because now uniforms are getting smaller and tighter like they were back in the day. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I feel like I'm going to be meeting my match. We need to buy smaller uniforms because I just refuse to let that happen. I don't know. That's just my thing. The other thing I had was back in the day, French braids. I wouldn't like when they're playing because one of our assistant coaches said that didn't look athletic or like tough. They couldn't wear French braids. That isn't a non-negotiable. Some of them wear those now. Yeah. But like things, you can't be late. Don't want to call female athletes girls. Don't like that. If you're texting me, you have to address like if I put in the group chat or something, or they're asking me something, like it's different if it's a conversation, but if it's like out of the blue, they text me, they need to say like, hi, Lisa, or hi, coach. Like I will say, hi, Mark, like, or hey, Mark. I will never just say, hey, and ask the question. I just don't, I don't think it's a good way to be. No cell phones at team meetings, team dinners, team meals, team anything. Just put them away. Not allowed. I can't think of anything else right now.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's lots. I have tons of like pet peeves that they.
That just reminds me. Yeah, it just reminds me of a story, and then Reagan will wrap it up here. A buddy of mine was coaching his team, and they were out for dinner, and all of a sudden, everyone at the table started to laugh, and he's looking around. He goes, "What are you guys laughing at?" And it was like, "Oh, well, so and so said something real funny." They were all on their phones texting each other in their chat and not saying a word to each other at dinner. So that's what he did. He goes, from now on, when we go to a restaurant, your phones go in the bucket. Yeah. And we talk to each other.
Yes.
So, oh my.
Ding dongs. Oh my
Yes.
God. Or the other pet peeve, out for dinner, and the server comes around, like asking everyone what they want. And like, or even they're approaching the table. And if our athletes are still talking to one another and don't acknowledge that they're there, that is a big problem for me. Like, again, just being respectful and professional. If someone comes to the gym, they're watching a practice, like go and introduce yourself. If you walk into the gym and I'm there, like say hello, don't be awkward and be like, oh, she doesn't want to talk to me or I'm bothering her. Like, just, again, be a normal human being and just have some social skills, I guess.
Living the culture. Great. Thanks so much, Lisa.
Thanks a lot for the questions.
Let's challenge you with a quiz here at the end of the night.
Oh gosh.
Quick, you'll get the answer. So you did mention some athletes that are currently playing in the NCAA, and now correct me if I'm wrong. Every number one seed in the NCAA tournament for the women has a Canadian on it. Who are those Canadians?
Oh, okay. Well,
and which school are they at?
Letitia Amihere from who's at South Carolina. Aaliyah Edwards, who's at UConn, Alyssa Jerome, who's at Stanford, and then I forget her first name, but Demiki, who is at NC State.
Very good. Very good. I had this written. They got it right. Yes. So, yes, if you haven't been watching the women's tournament, I recommend it highly. It's been some questionable finishes.
Yeah.
Questionable finishes, but some really, really good games.
Totally. Watch Caitlin Clark at Iowa. Yes. She is a talent.
She's very good.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
She's been fun. Oregon's been fun to watch too. Like there's been some some very good games. Again, men's tournament's been great too, but it's nice to have more coverage and balanced out. And and obviously the controversy that came with the one weight room and the other one stack of fitness club weights that were like,
with the yoga mats, like, wow, way to really like play into the stereotype that we are trying to destroy.
Exactly.
Just brutal. I'm glad it was somewhat corrected, but just wow.
Lots of good work out of it, actually. It takes something like that to create some real positive change. So I think there'll be a lot of good.
I think Don Staley wrote that letter that thank you for showing everyone exactly
how you feel about us.
You say one thing and you do another.
Completely. So, Hey, just before we go, I just want to thank all the coaches for coming online tonight and giving up time in their evening to listen, and really appreciate all that you're doing for basketball in Alberta and in this country. It's amazing. You know, it takes so many people to get our program to where it is, and just much appreciation for everything that you do. So great to see you tonight, and thanks for the invite.
Well, again, thank you, Coach. It's been fantastic, and we look forward very much to the national team's return here to Edmonton, and hopefully it's not too bubbled, and we can come see you in person and
absolutely
watch the team. Again, I've been very fortunate to be in the gym with you guys many times, and again, everything that Coach talked about tonight, they do. And again, I've seen you not be the cheerleader many times, which is I've seen you wrap some knuckles, which is ideal. So it's and again, the results are there, as Coach Mark explained before, gone from 20th or so in the world to top 5 and being ranked 4th. There's, again, not an accident. And like you said, it does take everybody, but at the end of the day, you are in charge of seeing those results happen, when the ball goes up on those game days. So
Much appreciated.
thank you again. Thank you for making the time for us, and again for opening the doors to have us be part of the national program in small ways and
Absolutely.
contribute where we can. So thank you very much. And again, thank you for all the coaches who came out and were a part of it. And again, don't be shy. If you've got questions, send them in to us, and we'll make sure we get them off to Coach. So
yeah, absolutely. Like, by all means, like, you can email me afterwards anytime. I'll get back to you and answer as best I can. Probably not about grade 6 basketball. Anything else.
Exactly. Thanks so much, Lisa. All right. Thanks.
Lisa.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lisa.